All right, let's just dive right into this. Picture this. You're at the office, or, maybe a neighborhood barbecue. You're chatting with an acquaintance you've known for, let's say 6 months. You're laughing, the vibes are great, and then you confidently address them by name. But the exact second the word leaves your mouth, a sudden, completely irrational surge of panic washes over you. Your fight or flight response fully activates over a guy holding a paper plate of potato salad. You realize, with horrifying clarity, that you have just called them by the wrong name. And actually, worse, you realize you have been calling them by the wrong name for months. Welcome to our explainer on the anatomy of an awkward moment.
Hey, Dave, you say. His name is Dan. You know his name is Dan, but the mistake is already out there. That split second where the realization hits you is honestly like a freight train. He doesn't correct you, you don't correct yourself. You both just completely freeze in the conversational headlights. And suddenly, correcting it somehow feels infinitely worse than just committing to the lie forever. It is a uniquely human experience. But why?
I mean, really, why do we let a minor mental glitch create a permanent social prison? Today, we're going to track this hilarious everyday social disaster chronologically so you can understand exactly why you are such a coward. We're going to journey from the basic cognitive filing error that caused the glitch in the first place, all the way to the inescapable sociological standoff that forces you to call Dan Dave until the end of time. Let's start at the beginning. Phase 1, the messy mental filing cabinet, the glitch. We've got to start with the crime itself, right? Why did your brain confidently grab the wrong name and serve it up on a silver platter? Well, a really fascinating study out of Duke University looked exactly at this phenomenon. They found that our brains group familiar individuals into what are called semantic categories. So I want you to think of your brain not as some precise supercomputer, but more like a panicked intern wildly throwing papers into broad mental folders labeled family, friends, or coworkers. When you go to retrieve a name, you aren't searching a clean database. Your brain is just blindly reaching into one of these folders and grabbing whatever file feels close.
So what happens is a perfect storm of a word-finding failure. You're talking to Dan, a coworker. Your brain frantically reaches into the coworker folder. It's also looking for phonetic similarity, names that start with a D and end with an N or just sound kind of similar. So it grabs Dave. But honestly, my absolute favorite part of this Duke research is what they call the dog anomaly. Have you ever wondered why your mom sometimes frantically calls you by the family dog's name? It's because the dog is literally filed in her brain's family semantic category. But researchers noted this hilarious caveat. People almost never mistakenly call a family member by the family cat's name. Dogs come when called, so they get integrated into the human family file. Cats apparently get their own separate aloof mental folder because they simply do not care what you call them.
Which brings us to phase 2, the politeness trap, or as I like to call it, the freeze. Okay, so your brain glitched. You said the wrong name out loud. The word Dave is just hanging there in the air. But why didn't Dan correct you? And why did you completely freeze up instead of just laughing and fixing it? To understand this, we have to look at politeness theory, developed by researchers Penelope Brown and Stephen Levinson. They introduced this concept called the Face Threatening Act, or FTA. Face is essentially your public self-image. Calling out a mistake, whether it's you admitting you forgot someone's name or them telling you that you're flat out wrong, is a massive face-threatening act. It threatens your self-esteem by making you look foolish, and it threatens his by implying he isn't even memorable enough to earn a spot in the right mental folder.
So in that exact split second, your brain runs a lightning-fast calculation across all these available politeness strategies. Do you go bald on record and just say, whoops, your name is Dan? I mean, you get credit for honesty, sure, but it feels so tactless. Do you try an off-record joke? Ultimately, your brain bypasses all logic and instinctively chooses the nuclear option. Do not do the FTA. You both subconsciously agree that avoiding the offense completely is just way better than succeeding at accurate communication. You essentially choose polite cowardice over the truth.
Moving right along to phase 3, saving face at all costs.
The mistake has happened, the freeze has occurred, and now both of you are basically just scrambling to survive the interaction. Researcher Stella Ting Toomey gives us the face negotiation theory, which perfectly explains this weird dynamic. You're both experiencing a bizarre bystander effect in a dyadic relationship. You're both waiting for the other person to fix the mistake. You are desperately trying to protect your self-face, thinking, I really don't want to look incredibly stupid right now. And he is operating on a collectivistic impulse, protecting other face, thinking, I don't want to embarrass you by pointing out you're wrong. It's a beautiful, silent pact of mutual protection, and it is built entirely on a lie. This silent pact is driven by what's called the emotions as social information theory, or EASI. In that moment of misnaming, your eyes widen slightly, your posture stiffens up. Dan notices this. You are non-verbally transmitting absolute panic, and our emotional expressions heavily influence the behaviors of those observing us. Right now, the social information is loud and clear. Abort mission. Accept the name Dave.
Now we reach phase 4, the unspoken psychological contract. Fast forward a few months, what started as a split-second polite silence has now morphed into something terrifying. In organizational behavior, there is this concept called the psychological contract. It's an individual's unwritten belief regarding the reciprocal obligations between two parties. Without ever speaking a single word about it, you and your acquaintance have formed a deeply mutual, terrifyingly binding psychological contract. Your obligation is to confidently call him Dave whenever you see him. His obligation is to respond to the name Dave without hesitation. You are both locked in like a hostage negotiation.
And here is where the sheer absurdity of human psychology really kicks in. Let's say it's been 6 months, you suddenly decide, you know what, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to call him Dan today. If you do that, you will trigger a psychological contract violation. Research actually shows that violating this unwritten contract triggers feelings of anger and betrayal. Just think about that. If you suddenly called him by his actual, real, legal name, it would feel like a betrayal of the bizarre trust you've built over the last 6 months of enthusiastically lying to each other.
Which lands us in phase 5, your bizarre new ecosystem.
This right here is the permanent, inescapable social reality you have successfully engineered for yourselves. Vanderbilt University researchers call this creating a personal ecosystem. Because you consistently behave in a specific way, calling him Dave, and he consistently reacts in a specific way, answering to Dave, you have actually severed yourselves from the shared reality of everyone else around you. In the real world, his name is Dan, but in your hyper-specific, isolated personal ecosystem, his name is Dave, and frankly, it always has been.
You are officially trapped by invariant behavior. I mean, neither of you will change the routine. You keep saying Dave. You are completely trapped by social inertia. Like a boulder rolling down a hill of awkwardness, it is vastly easier to just keep calling him Dave than to try and stop the train. And most importantly, you've created a closed system, totally impermeable to reality. Even if someone else walks up and says, "Hey Dan," you will both probably pretend you didn't hear it, just to protect the ecosystem. You are basically doomed to wander this alternative universe together forever. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I've got to ask you a question. Who are you currently trapped in a personal ecosystem with? Is there a Dave at your office who is secretly a Dan? And more importantly, is today the day you bravely break your own bizarre psychological contract and apologize? Or are you just going to be Dave's friend forever? Thanks so much for exploring this wonderfully irrational trap with me.